Hello and welcome to another edition of the business programme on Kirklees local television, with people who get to the crux of the matter without fuss and without funnel. I'm Dave Hodgson, and this month we'll be discussing business management with David Broadhead of Partners in Management, and legal issues, health and safety and employment law with Tom Clough, Business Development Manager with Peninsula. Welcome first of all, David Broadhead, to the programme. Now I think let's get straight down to brass tacks with Partners in Management. It was conceived and founded in 1999 by yourself, and the company specialises in devising and implementing development programmes and are instigators of the Forum, which is a think tank involving other local businesses. So, brass tacks, what does that mean to a layperson?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me along today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome.
In terms of explaining what Partners in Management does, if you were to look at our website and look at our company logo, we've got our elevator pitch on there, which says that we inspire and develop entrepreneurs, which for most people is probably, they think it's a spelling mistake. But what it really means is that for entrepreneurs are those people that can sort of combine entrepreneurial skills, management skills and leadership skills to really drive innovation and change in organisations. So we offer probably the country's leading nationally recognised programme in being able to develop entrepreneurs, and as a consequence, if people want, they get a graduate or master's level qualification afterwards.
Now you mentioned qualifications there. What qualifications and experience does it take to make you who you are with your firm?
I'll answer the first part, which is the easiest part first, which is the qualifications aspect. Personally, I've got a degree in engineering, followed that up with a diploma in management studies, which is a 3-year part-time course in management, followed that with a master's in management by action learning, and topped that off with a teaching qualification. And to offer the types of nationally recognised and accredited programmes we do, it's a prerequisite that you've got to have a master's level degree and also a teaching qualification. Now that was the easy bit.
That's the
easy bit. The hard part is the experience that goes with it. And I had a long and varied career. I might suggest I probably had about 4 or 5 careers as life's gone on. I started at David Brown's as development engineer, developing tank gearboxes. Started to get some management, supervisory experience there. Moved on into international project management with them, moved on to general management, then left, set up my own business back in the 90s, which was doing manufacturing systems consultancy work.
Were there any moments as you found you were stepping out and cold drafts were blowing because it was up to you?
Very much so, yes. And I can bring that back in a moment as well, because yes. I then went on to join the university, local university, Huddersfield University, lecturing in management there, and I suddenly found that those experiences that I had, and the ones you're sort of referring to, where you wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, knowing you've got to go in the morning after and close a factory down and make 100 people redundant, is a sort of experience that you need to be able to then go on and relate to people when you're developing programs. Yeah,
somebody has to do it. You know, whether you're the Dr. Beeching of the series or not, but you must have seen a gap in the market, surely.
We specialise in leadership management development for owner managers, senior managers, corporate executives, etc. And the traditional sort of HE approach of business studies for grown-ups wasn't right, and I could see that there's a market for something that was highly focused, very time and cost effective, very personal to small groups. And I wanted to do that, and big organisations aren't geared up to do that. No.
So serious challenges to overcome. What were they, and what was your survival strategy?
The worst challenge we faced was back in 2008, 2009.
That was a bad time for everybody.
Very bad time. When I left the university, I worked closely in partnership with the university and delivered a Masters in Strategic Change Management and diploma and certificate. around the country to small groups through a franchise arrangement that we had. And as the economic crisis hit, the university closed down virtually all its franchises, which meant that our business model had gone. So we had to effectively do a new business startup. We got accredited by the Chartered Management Institute to deliver programs and qualifications. But with hindsight, anybody that was foolish enough to start a new business in the depth of the recession that was sort of non-mandatory training in the north of England needed some serious questioning, but we did it and we've survived.
Yeah. So let's go to the upside. What have been the highlights and the benefits of that this company has brought to you?
The most fantastic benefit is when you see people that you've worked with for a short period or a long period of time that go on to have fantastic careers and achieve significant progress and development for their organisations. And we've seen some organisations that were struggling, that through leadership management development and that awareness and that understanding, developing that knowledge and skills, they've transformed those businesses. And that's fantastically rewarding. And it's fantastically rewarding as well when you see people and you look at what they do and you think, I could never do that. You're full of admiration for them. So that's one side. Second point, very much when you've developed a programme, you've sold it, you've got people through, the cheque comes in the post, those sorts of things, you think, yeah, I did that.
Lastly then, and looking sort of holistically about Kirklees and even West Yorkshire, what would you like to see both locally and nationally to improve commercial growth in our area and thereby create more employment?
The big issue that we've got nationally and regionally relates to productivity. It takes us 5 days to do what the typical German worker takes 4 days, and that's replicated across manufacturing industry, the service sector, the NHS. We're massively unproductive in what we do. We've lost that ability to innovate and to drive change through. We sort of follow as opposed to be first. And we're facing Brexit. And lots of negatives to that, but lots of fantastic opportunities as well if we choose to take them and have the right mindset that we're going to go for change, we're going to be world leaders and we're going to be regional leaders. We need to upskill people and make that skill the right skill and the right attitude. And yeah, we can be successful if we do it so.
I can't think of anybody that wouldn't give a thumbs up to that. So, David, thank you very much indeed for being our guest on this part of the programme today.
Thank you.
And why don't you join us after the break when the subjects are legal issues, health and safety and employment law with Tom Clough, Business Development Manager at Peninsula. Bye for now. And welcome back to the business programme on KLTV. So now I'll be talking to Tom Clough, Business Development Manager with Peninsula. Straight cut to the quick, what is Peninsula? What do you do?
Yeah, so we've been operating over 30 years. We're the UK's largest and most trusted employment law, HR and health and safety provider. We work with just over 35,000 predominantly SMEs. We're worldwide with offices over in Ireland, Australia, New Zealand. And our slogan is #success starts here. Organisations are 3.5 times more likely to be successful as a member of Peninsula.
A bit global then.
Yeah, we're a large organisation.
Now, again, let's get down to brass tacks. As far as the minimum wage is concerned this year, how should employers prepare for what's coming?
First of all, companies need to be aware that the government are looking at prosecuting companies that are not compliant with that increase in minimum wage. They've just set aside an extra 4.3 million to give to the HMRC to set up specific teams looking at prosecuting non-compliant companies. So yeah, it's pretty important that they're compliant.
And you're the guys to tell them how to be.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how small that change is, 5p, 10p an hour, it's important for companies to be proactive about what they're doing for that minimum wage rather than reacting to it after the 1st of April.
I'm not going to ask you how you voted, but I would imagine that with being a global, a world company, Brexit may or may not be a dirty word to you. So how will Theresa May triggering Article 50 affect employment law? Do we make it up as we go along without Europe? But employees need codes of practice. Why is it important?
Well, we've got 2 years to negotiate our terms of leaving the EU. In terms of employment law, it's quite cloudy. We're unsure at the minute. When we do leave the EU, the government can and possibly will change employment law. So yeah, it's...
but you don't know what it is yet.
You just don't know. I mean, one thing that we have seen is a reduction in migrant workers as forced employers to increase salaries for more menial jobs to entice, you know, the British workers.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we could make a whole programme on that. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Things don't always go smoothly, and in the event of having to discipline staff, do you need to have an employee's handbook?
Yeah, certainly it's very important that staff are aware of the rules and policies that you're disciplining them on. So yeah, they must be aware of what the rule is on the outset to be disciplined on the back end of it.
And what do we need to know about employment contracts? Again, another touchy subject, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a contract's an agreement that sets out employment conditions and must be given to staff within the first 2 months of employment.
How will the new apprentices levy affect small businesses in particular?
Yeah, so the apprenticeship levy, it's a government scheme. They're wanting to get 3 million new apprenticeships in place by 2020. Small businesses will have to contribute 10% of the cost to an apprenticeship. Now, for small businesses to cover themselves, you know, should the apprentice leave the organisation, they can make sure that training contracts are in place so they can recoup that 10%, you know, should things not work out for them.
What do companies need to be aware of with the pensions auto-enrolment?
Okay, well, pension's a big thing at the minute, and it's very important that companies, going back to contracts, that they change the contract to reflect their current pension offering. One thing I will say is there's a certain selection of people that we're finding companies are missing out. The 10 grand or above earners, they're auto-enrolling. But there's a section of people between the 10,000 and 5,000 earnings bracket that must be offered the option of auto-enrolling into the pension with employer contribution. Then there's a third and final section of people that are 5 grand or less earners a year. They must be offered the option to enrol into a pensions without the employer contributing.
Mm-hmm. I'm sort of glad I'm not an employer. I think I could remember about half of that, and we've only just been talking about it. So there must be other ways that you can help, and I believe one is if somebody does want to make initial contact with you, they can, and it won't by telephone, and it ain't going to cost them anything.
Yeah, certainly. We provided a free advice line for KLTV customers. If you'd like to speak to one of our HR experts, then we've got a dedicated free phone line. That number's 0844 892 3913, and be sure to reference the code KLTV.
And my thanks to Tom Clough, Business Development Manager with Peninsula, for steering us through that otherwise minefield of information. And that's all we have time for in the business programme this month. My thanks to David Broadhead and Tom Clough for taking part, to producer Barry Davenport and business director Nikki Matthews, to Kyle Warwick, production manager, and his entire crew. Back with you with the May edition shortly. This is Dave Hodgson wishing you well and good fortune to your enterprise.